Good evening, all dignitaries and my student managers. I, Kopal Bisht, student manager, BIMHRD, would like to introduce a very special stalwart, Mr. Rajat Bhatia, Vice President with Serco and Head HR Recruitment, Training and Leadership Development for past 6.5 years. With over 18 years of experience in his corporate career, Sir had worked with brands like Wipro, Business Process Outsourcing, GE Money Servicing, National Panasonic, and India Limited. Sir has done his engineering in electrical and electronics from Mangalore University and did MBA in finance from ICFAI. Sir has grown from service head to vice president. During the course of his career, Sir has ensured that he keeps up his learning and is today a master black belt in Six Sigma and Lean. Sir is certified expert as customer service trainer, operation management, program management, team management, and business process outsourcing. I hope we have to acquire a lot from you, sir. May I now call upon Mr. Rajat Bhatia to address the audience and guide us with his words of wisdom. Sir, the podium is all yours.
Can all of you hear me? Yes, sir. Okay. First of all, good evening, all of you. Good evening, sir. And thank you for the warm welcome. I really appreciate it. And thank you for the introduction. I know that this is going to be practically the last session. Yeah? So I'm the last man standing between you and your break, right? Yes, sir. Okay. That doesn't make my job any easier. I'm sure you might, or some of you might be wanting to get out of this. No? Okay. Before I start, let me just talk about a few things. I guess one, this initiative taken by your management is absolutely brilliant to get in some of the corporate industry people and talk to you, considering you are absolutely standing at the cusp of moving out of your education, your college life, and probably some of you or most of you will be entering into a career, a full-time career role. It is also, so obviously it helps in answering a few queries, resolving some of the questions that might be playing in your mind. The presentation fundamentally is more around challenges of the dynamic business world, and the slides are incidental to say the least. I would rather, so I'm going to run through them. They are very simple slides, but more or less I would want this to be a lot more interactive session if it can be. In your best interest, I would believe that I'm here as requested by your management, and they obviously are here to ensure that you guys get to hear some of the questions or answers to the questions that you might have in your mind, considering I believe this is the senior lot, right? Yes, sir. So which means that you will be graduating very soon, right? So this is not so much about me presenting particularly, while I'll talk about this in context, but this is about I'm more than happy to interact with each one of you and address some of your concerns, queries if there are any, and we will do that through the Q&As and question and answers. But like the topic, what it talks about, challenges of dynamic business world. Before we get into the challenges of a business world, which is obviously a far a larger entity to talk about. I think today, if we look at it, the challenges are creeping into our day-to-day lives. I can talk about it. Let's say when we were growing up, for us, our entire repository of knowledge was our parents or our teachers. So whatever our teachers said, whatever our parents said, if we had a question, we would go to our parents, to our teachers, they would give some answer, right or wrong, we don't know. But we assumed that was right? Some of you also might have experienced that. But today, my son is, the elder son is about 12 years, and that's still fairly old but kids who are 6, 7 years of age, you tell them something, they will suddenly go pick up an iPad, Google it and say, you're wrong, Mr. Google is saying this, right? So those are challenges that you're experiencing, one, because you have vast access to knowledge. Now, while we can talk about this as a challenge, it's also an opportunity, it's also very, very interesting. It's also a positive, considering today everything is on your fingertips, right? Today you don't need to worry, you don't need to wait to look through some books, buy some books to get knowledge. It's at the tip of your button. It's gone in your hands, in your palms, through the iPhones, iPads, mobile phones, smartphones. But like we talk, and considering you guys are entering into a career, into a corporate life, or whichever, whether you do your own business, you start something on your own, there are some challenges that are significantly impacting the world, right? Today, the way we used to work, or the way things used to be about a couple of years back, has significantly changed or modified. If you look at some of these quotes, I don't know how many of you can relate to it, but there was a time when they felt that the world had market for at best 5 computers. There was a time when they said that telephone is an amazing innovation, but what's the use? Right? In today's day and age, if you look at this, none of us can relate to this. There was a time when a German car auto manufacturer believed that this was the ultimate innovation that somebody could have done, and nothing better could happen. And they felt that we do not expect any further improvements to this. I'm sure they must be twisting and turning in their graves today, considering where we are and what kind of innovations that has happened. Taking these as some simple examples, what is happening today? The world out there, it's a VUCA world, right? Have you heard this term VUCA? Yes, sir. Brilliant. And what does it stand for? Okay. So you already know what are the challenges, right? So absolutely, it's a VUCA world. It has volatility, it has uncertainty, it has complexity, it has ambiguity, correct? If you look at today, we are today staying in India, we are operating in India. How many of you remember the US subprime crisis? Does anybody remember the subprime crisis of the US? The fall of Lehman Brothers? Do you guys remember that? Yes, sir. Now what happened with the subprime crisis or fall of Lehman Brothers? That was an organization, that was a bank, that was some financial institute running like thousands and thousands of kilometers away from us. But what happened when that subprime crisis happened? What happened to the globe? What happened to the entire world economy? The world economy came under threat, right? So today, it's not just about what's the economy of your country alone. It's not just about how you're doing as an organization, how you're doing in your business. It's not just about that. Because with globalization, what has happened is that a lot of factors or parameters are interlinked. While this is, in a way, while it brings its own challenges, there are some advantages also to this. Today, India is slated to be one of the world's leading economies, along with China, right? Imagine a world without globalization. Nobody would have outsourced to India. We wouldn't have been able to sell our technology to the world. We wouldn't have outsourced the way we are. We wouldn't have our people going abroad for the work that they do. If all that would not have happened, we would have been in the pre-liberalization age. We would have never grown. We would never have become an economy of the size we are. Today, all the companies in the world, in every single industry, whether it's banking, it's financial services, it's retail, it's travel, it's hospitality, anything you pick up, everyone wants to be in India. And everyone wants to be in China. Because they know that these are the economies that are growing. And they know that this is where the business is. If you look at car manufacturers today, every kind of car that we used to think of, or we used to see in movies, or if somebody traveled abroad, everything is available here. Because they believe that this is what is the future. This is where the economy is growing. So when we talk about VUCA world, obviously you guys have studied about it and you know a lot about it theoretically. But what does it do? If you look at it, something like this in the stock market, what is happening? That's a normal day in a stock market. They are talking about, somebody is talking about selling shares, somebody is talking about buying shares. There is an utmost confusion. Somebody feels that, oh, this company suddenly has got some contract from some external country, this share's got to go up. Somebody feels, oh, this is going to crash. Nobody knows what they're talking. Even the experts don't know, right? A lot of the experts themselves have not been able to predict most of the meltdowns that have happened, most of the global economy crisis that have happened. If you look at it, most of the experts would be equally divided in predicting some of this. At best, it will be a probability, right? Somebody would have said that, yeah, this is going to happen. If they turn out to be right, they will say, see, I predicted this. The more recent one is an example of Greece. Are you familiar with the Greece? What happened with Greece? Yeah? So did anybody expect that? If we were able to predict some of these things, then we should have been able to solve for these problems. So what is happening in the world today? What is making it so difficult? What is causing that problem? Earlier when we used to operate, it's not that any time that the business was done or corporates were run or organizations that ran, that problems were not there. But today what is happening is, it's not just about the problems. Today people are facing a dilemma of what to do, what decision to take. They don't know that decision is going to be right or wrong. Today, as you will move into corporates, as you will grow in your careers, you will become managers, you will be in positions of taking decisions. You will realize that one of the things that's going to be always confusing you is that, should I take this decision or not? What's going to be the impact of it? Because some impact is visibly, you can visibly, theoretically assume that might have, but there are a lot of other impact which you can't see, you can't predict, which may not be in your control, which may not be in your environmental control. So what does it require? It's like waiting for the perfect moment, that perfect decision. But it's easier said than done. In a business environment, it is very difficult to predict what that perfect moment or that perfect decision is. When is the right time to take a decision? You might take a decision which might end up being too early, and the market or people around you may not be ready for it. Or you might take a decision which may be too late. Then again, the market is not ready for it because you are out of your competition. The competition has already eaten you. And that holds true everywhere. If you look at it, simple things. You look at a movie. Somebody who tried to make a very, very advanced movie about 15 years back, those movies did not make any money. But today that market is matured enough to accept that. So they were a bit too early, and they spent a lot of their money making that movie, which made them bankrupt. But in today's scenario, if somebody does not get into that kind of an innovative way to make a movie, then they may not make money or the kind of money that movies are making. So again, the dilemma that comes in is, am I early or am I too late? So what does that mean? What does that leave us with? It leaves the leaders with things which is an ultimate paradox for the leaders, which is, you can't predict the future, but you have to make some sense of it. If you have to thrive in the current economy, if you have to thrive in the current business environment, then you absolutely need to make sense of the future. Because if you do not predict the future, you obviously will not know what decisions to take. And this today, I can say this very clearly. If you ask any leader in any organization, anyone who is managing businesses, they will say this is becoming the single most fundamental challenge that people are facing. When you guys will go for interviews in due course, trust me, you will be evaluated on things like these. Because today as HR, we evaluate people when we interview them on things like these. What is their ability to take decisions in a very, very changing environment? Now, they are simulated questions or simulated way of interviewing, but what is expected is that does somebody have the ability, the attitude to manage through some of those? Because today, when you're hiring people, you are looking at, can we look at these people to be groomed as future leaders? It is competitive. Obviously, somebody as an organization, if I'm hiring, I would look at getting the right person who fits my organization, and I'm able to groom or get that person to move in the right direction so that the person is able to take bigger roles in future. So what does that mean? Today, it's not just about planning something and executing it. It's about having the right foresight. It's having the right insight. And it's also about taking that action. It's about having the foresight of predicting what is required in the future of the current business environment. It's about having the right insight, which means do you know the right data? Do you have the right information? And it's about then taking that action based on some of that foresight and insight. Here are some of the trends that might interest most of you. More recently, if you look at, these are industries in which the hiring trends picking up the top industry. If you look at it, while banking and telecom industries have gone up, to a certain extent pharma, a lot of other industries, the way they were hiring has gone down. If you look at functional areas, again, while HR, IT, the hiring has increased, finance, the hiring has marginally increased. There are areas where it's either more or less similar or it's gone down. Because all of this goes through a cycle or a cyclical graph, right? As and when the organization, as and when some of these industries start to grow up the curve, you will see a lot of hiring year on year. But as they start to mature, all this starts to plateau. And when you get into some of these, that's when the differentiation comes in, that organizations will look at who's the best fit, because today they will have enough and more opportunities or more and more people to hire from. So they will want the right fit, while their requirement may have come down. If you look at some of the trends in terms of graduates, so while we are talking about this, if you look at it, in some hiring has gone up, in some cases it's gone out, net off more or less wherever it would have been. But the number of graduates from 12-13 to 14-15, and this is only India, the number of graduates have gone up. These are the number of graduates that are coming out, which means that the pool is increasing. The pool is increasing, you have, the opportunities are more or less the same. There could be, that's why you see that some of the things that are coming up, whether it's e-commerce, some of these new opportunities that are coming up, how ready are you guys? How are you going to be different from the other person who's going to be sitting next to you for an interview? How are you going to be different for the industry, for that organization? If I were to hire one of you, why would I hire one of you versus somebody else from some other college? That is the question. That is where the challenge is. If you look at it, still in the 0 to 3 years, there's a significant amount of hiring that is happening all across. So while those are some of the trends, we are talking about some context, there are of course some challenges that are there in the current environment. Some of them, or most of them, you guys would be aware of. I've talked about this partly, but if you look at it, India has one of the largest pool of people available. But the actual number of people that can be hired, and I'm talking purely from an organization standpoint, I'm talking from a corporate standpoint, I'm talking from an HR standpoint. Now when I go out to hire people, that's where the struggle happens. That's where the challenge comes in. For the organization, while the pool is large, the people fitting or befitting that requirement is not exactly in line. There are, honestly speaking, some of it, there's a lot of work happening in the background on this, but there's still a severe gap between what is taught in colleges and what is actually required out there. The skills that you will be required to display 6 months from now, and I don't mean to point it only at your college, but I'm generally saying in most colleges, the skills that are required, most colleges don't teach those skills. But when you'll sit across that interviewer, they will be looking at those skills. They will be evaluating you for those skills. There is a challenge in candidate fitment, planning. Of course, technology, with all its merits, also brings its own challenges. Business alignment, how businesses align, how people align to businesses, and in the end, the demographic challenge that comes in. Talking about the talent pool. So this, if you look at, this is a study which says 60% of new jobs will require skills that only 20% of population possesses. Are you that 20%? That's the question. Are you doing something different to be that 20%? The good news for us is that 54% of today's college graduates are from emerging markets. India has that talent pool. Luckily for us, one of the things that is holding us in good stead is the fact that we have a lot of talented people. And we have a lot of people that are graduates who are coming out, who can be hired, who can be moved in, who do possess some of the skills that are required, definitely. Consider this when you go out and hire in US or in the UK, that number is significantly low. Because one, you wouldn't have so many graduates coming out, you wouldn't have the population to support that. Changing technology. I think the speaker before me, I just happened to hear part of his speech. But he was talking about that e-com app because people are going to be using, or they are using mobiles. If you look at it, 80% of companies are saying that people are accessing pages through mobiles. Most of the people have started to look at internet through their mobiles. If you look at the consumer spending on mobile, that has gone up. In 2014, it's $204 billion. It's expected to move up to $626 billion. This is another example of changing technology, while we all know this is an advantage, that we have mobiles we can access anywhere on the go. But look at companies like BlackBerry. All of you know BlackBerry? Yes. What happened to BlackBerry? Couldn't keep up? What happened? Why couldn't they keep up? Sorry? Yeah. So somebody, obviously they said that somebody is saying their focus was more on business side, somebody is saying marketing myopia. That's all correct. They could not predict the future. They continued. If you go back 5 years back, BlackBerry in the US 10-15 years back, everyone used BlackBerry. Till about 4 years back, everyone used BlackBerry. Every company gave BlackBerry connections to their employees, because that was the standard thing to give. That was the standard application or mobile to give to access mails on. There was nothing better than that. Yeah? But within 3-4 years, they vanished. What happened to Nokia? 5 years, 6 years back, they were the market leaders in mobiles. Today, they don't feature anywhere. They are struggling to innovate and get back. BlackBerry is struggling to innovate and get back. BlackBerry is talking about coming up with an Android phone. Wiped out, absolutely wiped out. Companies which were leaders in the world are wiped out in a matter of 3 to 4 years. Look at HP and Dell. What did they do? Upgradation. What was their prime focus? Laptops, desktops, printers. Yeah? Customization, which is fine, but what was the product they were focusing on? Laptops and computers. What happened? Suddenly they realized that the market is moving away. While we are manufacturing laptops and computers, people are, while they are still buying, everyone will have a laptop, but people are moving more towards mobiles, towards iPads. They suddenly jumped into manufacturing some of these smartphones, right? But they're fairly late in the market. Organizations which commanded markets 3-4 years back, in 3-4 years they've come down significantly, on the verge of getting wiped out. That is the challenge. That is how technology is changing. Today you pick up any specific industries which you can't even think of, or you wouldn't even normally think of, they are using technology apps. Everything is moving to technology. Who could have thought a couple of years back that you could do an MBA sitting at home over Skypes and some of these technologies? With the advent of all this technology, obviously people who want to get rich through different ways and means, they also are not stupid people, right? They're also very, very innovative. So while the technology on one side has been improving and moving leaps and bounds, because of that, the security and data theft has also significantly gone up. It has become today one of the biggest challenges all industries, all companies are facing. Data theft is extremely, extremely critical. It can happen in any ways, but I mean, some of the example, you know data theft from a standpoint. At a very basic example, you remember Rajat Gupta of McKinsey? Yeah? Those are the things that are happening. Today, data theft in terms of simply our organization works with clients and customers who give their credit card details. You also are constantly on sites buying things, shopping on Amazons, on Flipkarts of the world. You're giving your credit cards, right? All this is prone to data theft. And I don't know if somebody has faced it, but the industry we work in, or I work in, we see this every day. So for us, it's nothing new. It's not surprising. We still assume that nothing will happen, but we know what is the kind of risk involved, because the people who are doing this data theft are fairly innovative in this. So digital crime and IP theft is between $375 to $575 billion per year. Can you look at that numbers? And 5 of the 10 biggest all-time data breaches have occurred in 2013 and 14. So this is in the last 2 years where technology has moved in the most. Of course, with all this comes some challenges on the resources. If you look at it, what is anticipated or expected is that the world population will increase by 1.2 billion over the next 15 years. With that increase, the energy demand will increase by 33%. Requirement of water is going to increase significantly. There'll be, by 2030, if you look at it, water may be 40% more than supply. So the demand for water will be 40% more than what the supply is. And 90% of the world's production of energy depends on water. So while all these things are increasing, population is increasing, the resources are the same. There's a scarcity of resources. The resources are not changing. While those are some of the fundamental challenges, one of the other things that poses a challenge in the current environment is globalization. Today, all organizations, we spoke about it right at the start, I talked about it. Every organization, every company, global company wants to come and operate in India. Today, the organization I come from, we operate in UK, we operate in US, we operate in Philippines, we operate in Australia, we operate in China. But there are different challenges. The way we work in India, one of the biggest challenges we faced is the way we work in India, the way we drive our workforce in India, you cannot do the same in, say, a US or a Philippines. It doesn't work like that. The labor laws are different. People who go there, they struggle to get used to the different kind of workforce. So globalization, while there is a challenge in terms of adjusting to the laws of that land, there are also people challenges which are bigger in nature. If you go back 20, 30 years back, people were not comfortable moving from their zones, which is if they were in north of India, they would prefer to be in north of India because they will say most of the people are in north of India are North Indian, so we are comfortable with that. Today, gone are those days. Today, there are people who have to move from India to China without knowing any knowledge. People have to move to different countries. When you're managing global teams, there is a different kind of challenge because it does not work the same way. A lot of companies struggle with this globalization. A lot of companies struggle getting the right culture. When you have people from other countries, other nationalities coming and working in India and vice versa, it becomes a bit of a challenge. How do you manage that? Earlier it was once a while, it used to be not that frequent. Today it's become continuous. Earlier companies used to operate in isolation. Today everything is interconnected. Earlier it was at best a biculturalism. Today it's multiculturalism. And some of these things pose a lot of challenges for the managers, for HR, for the way the companies have to be run. So India in the last 20 years have changed the most than any other country in the last 100 years. There's been, of course, a lot of change in social mobility. India still possesses one of the youngest workforces in the world. Some of the challenges are the workforces definitely have different expectations, both in terms of compensation, both in terms of what they are expecting from the jobs. Some of the challenges that get posed is that it's not just the salary which is a deciding factor today. There are a lot of other things, because people are coming, they want to develop themselves. They want to learn new things. 30, 40 years back, our parents or our grandparents, they joined one organization, stayed in that for 30, 40 years, retired and moved out. They would not get promoted for 10 years, 15 years, there'll be one promotion. Today, that's not the expectation. When I look at people coming into our organization, one of the biggest challenges we face is how to keep meeting that expectation. Because people do not realize whether they are ready for it or not, but they definitely want to be promoted every year. And as you move on, when you start to manage people, these are challenges that you will face, you will see. And with so many opportunities coming in today, whether it's from one industry to the other, people tend to move. It becomes challenging to retain people, because with people moves knowledge. Once you lose people, you're also losing that knowledge, and you've invested a lot of time and effort in people. So those are challenges that an organization faces. So what do we do? And these are challenges that exist. So what can we do? How do we make ourselves different? How do we manage some of these challenges? And some of you will be faced with it very soon. Some of the key elements, I think, if we talk about, when you start looking at some of these challenges, so while challenges do exist, but it's not that all is lost or there is no way. Today, organizations are working, they are thriving, they are doing better than earlier, because for organizations who are willing to think about these challenges and are willing to work through these challenges are organizations that are also gaining the advantage. Look at Apple. Apple has gone through its own ups and downs, but look at the market cap. It continues to be the world leader. Yeah? Look at Walmarts of the world. There are so many stores that have opened up in the world. Look at McDonald's. Is there less competition? Look at Amazon. So a lot of these companies are working through some of this challenge. One of the things that needs to understand to manage these challenges is that there will be a change. There can't be a better time to agree to the phrase that change is the only constant. The only thing that has changed is that the rate of speed of that change has become significantly fast. So you have to be tuned to what's happening around you. You cannot shut your eyes. And it's not about you waiting for when you'll get a job or when you'll be a manager that this thing will happen. It needs to start as early as you can. Because like I said, people who are going to hire you are going to expect that you understand some of these things. Come with some of these skills, knowledge, understanding, and the ability to solve it. That is what is going to make you different. The other thing is, while technology is changing, as an organization, as an individual, whatever field you are in your own business, you have to have efficient use of technology. You have to drive efficiency and speed using technology, because everyone is moving to platforms. It's the fastest connect. It's the best connect with the customers. You have to figure out a way to plan. And today, earlier, there used to be a strategy which used to run about 10 years. Organizations used to do the strategy workshops. They used to plan for the next 8 to 10 years. Today, you can't do that. You have to strategize for the next 3 years, 5 years, and keep looking at your strategy every 6 months. Strategizing and planning is one bit. Execution is another, which is very critical. And it's not something that you can only learn in corporate. I mean, when you study, when you give your exams, you plan, you strategize how to negotiate a subject and the exams, right? I'm sure all of you put a strategy in place, right? But people who excel in it are the ones who execute it very well. I've made a lot of strategies when I used to give my exams. In the end, when it used to come down to watching a movie or sleeping, all those strategies used to go down under the pillow, right? So that's where the difference lies between not just planning. A lot organizations, a lot people plan. How many of them execute it effectively? I've talked about resources. They are a scarce commodity. You have to start thinking of smarter ways. The globe is thinking of it smartly. Renewable energies, they're talking about solar energies, they're talking about various things. Change today, this is becoming one of the most critical aspects. I'm sure you guys in your subjects would have learned change management. Have you studied change management? Change management is one thing which gets applied to the organization day in and day out. Or anywhere you'll go, this will be a driving force. How do you effectively adopt the change? And last but not the least is people. Today, people is not just about getting people on board. It is about how do you retain them? How do you drive that knowledge retention? They are your most important resources. Investing in people, organizations are realizing more and more. If you look at organizations, they are making it more and more innovative ways to retain people, to address their challenges. They are trying to make it easier for people. They are trying to have recreational facilities in the offices because people are spending a lot of time in offices. They are trying to have creches. They are trying to have, concierge desks that people don't need to go out or get stressed because they have to finish their day-to-day errands. Because everyone is realizing that it's critical to retain people. But you only retain the people who are important to the organization. You got to become one of those people who are important and critical to the organization. If you do that, then organizations will go all out to retain you. There's a lot of flexibility as organizations that are doling out to their staff, simply because they know the importance of getting the right talent and retaining them. Yeah?
Thank you, sir. Now the house is open for questions.
Any questions? Yeah.
So could you talk about the relevance of TQM and Six Sigma certification in non-operations related fields such as HR or marketing? And could you cite some examples, real-life examples?
Okay. I don't know if all of you heard her question. Okay. So TQM, if you look at TQM today, the applicability is obviously existing in. So GE was the pioneer in picking up some of these Six Sigma, Lean, basics of TQM and implementing it organizations into their processes. Typically, TQM came from manufacturing. TQM, the fundamental element of TQM started from a manufacturing setup. But what GE did very effectively is started applying it in their service industry. Now, if you ask me the importance, TQM today, it's not something that is a choice. It has become absolutely important. It's become imperative that you do TQM because you cannot afford to have a product which is not good on quality. If you go and buy a simple pen of 5 rupees, you expect quality from that pen. If that pen stops working, you're going to throw it on the shopkeeper and say that what crap you have given me. That's after you've invested 5 rupees. Imagine people investing some 50,000 or 1 lakh rupees on a product. They expect quality. So quality has to be a DNA of any organization. Quality management is without any choice, absolutely required. Now, to cite some examples, Six Sigma, Lean, some of these things are used in processes, simple processes. When you're hiring people, there is a turnaround time, right? You see how many people are coming in. They look at what is the number of people getting converted, or how many people the HR is able to see, what's the process around it. It's taking 21 days to close an offer to a person. One recruiter is able to handle 3 people in a day or some, I'm just throwing up numbers. They mapped those processes and started applying TQM. And they figured out, or they realized that how can I make that 21 days come down to say 12 days or 14 days? How can I hire a person faster? How can I make sure that one recruiter, instead of hiring 3 people in a day, is able to hire 5 people in a day? So at every stage, they identified opportunities and areas which could be improved, and they implemented some of those TQM methodologies. Whether you look at HR as an example, whether you look at technology processes, which is on time or maintaining uptime of technology applications, whether you look at simple things, a lot of companies provide transport. You can apply TQM to that kind of element wherein if transport is going out, how accurately, what is the on time of the transport? If you look at flights, they use TQM, they measure their on time performance, and they go back and look at those processes and apply TQM to ensure that what's the shortest turnaround that a plane has to wait at the airport and then turn around and go back. Because the more the plane is in the air, the more revenues they earn. The more it's on the ground, they have to pay more. So TQM today is directly linked to maintaining it. It directly impacts your bottom line. It straight away gives you your processes, makes it more efficient, makes it faster, improved quality. Because cost of poor quality is extremely high these days. One, both in terms of price, loss you may have, and second, in terms of competition. You have poor quality, competition is going to eat you alive. Because no company is going to wait. They are just waiting. What happened to Maggie? What happened to Maggie? Right? That was a cost of poor quality, and that cost is not 1,000, 5,000 or 5 lakh rupees. That cost has run into millions and millions of dollars. The company in the first time in history has gone into a loss. That's a simple example how simple quality management impacted. Does that answer your question?
As a marketing graduate, would getting a certification
See, TQM from a certification first, that's an advice not just to you, to everyone, that first you need to be clear what you want to do. I mean, there are millions of certifications available in the market, right? Purely getting certification may or may not have any value. I'm not saying it'll have, I'm not even saying it'll not have. If I am hiring somebody, I'm going to hire you for your marketing skills. If you have a TQM certification, that's an added advantage. But I'm going to look at what your prime focus is or prime expertise is. Gradually, as you move into, if you have the knowledge of it, if you are certified, one, of course, any kind of knowledge and certification helps. It helps you on your resume. It helps you in, obviously, if you've got certified, more or less assume that if it's a proper certification, you would have gained enough and more knowledge. Any knowledge will help you if you can apply it into day-to-day business. Okay? But if you want to make a career in marketing, then TQM certification may not aid that. Unless your focus is gradually in course of your career move into that side of TQM. Yeah? Any other question?
Good evening, sir. Sir, I am Abhishek from Balaji Institute of International Business. Sir, I would like to know about your organization, about Serco, about the processes which are carried out inside the organization. And my second question is, what is the role of an MBA like us inside the organization? And I believe that Serco is a UK outsourcing organization primarily which deals with customer service.
Correct.
So what would be a role of an MBA in your organization?
So first, what does Serco do? Typically, Serco as an organization, Serco stands for service company. It's into a wide variety of businesses. The parent company, which is based in the UK, Serco, that manages a lot of things let me give you some examples. It manages contracts, service contracts. Let's say they manage end-to-end hospitals. They manage prisons in the US. They manage air traffic controls of airports. So you have the ATCs. They manage for Dubai Airport. They manage ATCs. They manage. They also manage train operations. So Dubai Metro is run by Serco. UK Metro is run by Serco. They also manage the Queen of England's transportation services. They are a lot into the defense side. So that's what Serco manages. Now the business unit or the business vertical I am a part of is more around the business process management services, okay, which is the BPM services. If you look at what is the role of a marketing person or an MBA per se, so typically we do hire fresh graduates, we hire MBAs, there are different requirements. So if you look at areas like at an entry level, there is a contact center, I mean that we don't hire MBAs there. But then in areas like finance, in areas like analytics, in areas like process excellence or TQM that we were talking about, in areas like HR, those are areas that we hire MBAs. In technologies, so technology could have, somebody who's done a basic technology and an MBA technology or information systems. So those are areas that we hire a lot of fresh graduates, MBAs, both experienced as well as freshers.
So the main reason for me asking this question was because I think, I have been a past employee of Serco, and I have worked in Mumbai office Malad for Barclaycard. So basically, I've heard that, being an employee of Serco, it was told to us that we cannot actually give away our details or even let the outside world know that we are working in a certain process inside Serco.
Correct.
So how does it actually, come into question that the security can be breached if we just let us know the people that, we are an employee of Serco or we work for a certain sort of process inside Serco?
So it's not about security breach or anything. It's just about we tell our clients that we'll maintain some amount of confidentiality. And that's what we tell our employees. Obviously, a lot of people, in the end, it becomes open knowledge, but we are contractually obligated not to talk through some of this because some of the clients don't want to be known or whatever that they're working with a certain organization, they are doing this. And plus, to your question again on that MBA, like I said, on the front line, which you worked in, the process you worked in, those are the areas we don't hire MBAs. But in other areas, like I talked about, we do hire MBAs. Yeah? Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Your enlightening speech on challenges in the VUCA world and how to overcome them will certainly help us in our corporate journey ahead. It's the ultimate paradox for leaders. You can't predict the future, but you must make sense of it in order to thrive. This particular quote from one of your slides perfectly sums up how we, future managers, can tackle and survive in these uncertain times in the world of business. Thank you, sir. We look forward to more such interactions with you in the future. Thank you, sir.
May I now request Mr. Suresh Chandrapadi to come on the stage to present memento to Mr. Rajat Bhatia.